Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is Anykind Media. We are your hosts. My name is Ocean Simeono.
I am Taylor Vera.
On this episode of Our Take, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at Amazon Prime Video's one of their newest releases. It's a dramatic movie titled 13 Lives that tells the story of the Thai boys that were stuck in a cave back in 2018, I believe it was.
I think so.
And it's a dramatic telling of the story. So what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of compare this movie to the documentary by National Geographic titled The Rescue. So this is the National Geographic documentary. It's a documentary, so it tells the true story as it's happening with the original people. And then this movie, 13 Lives, is a dramatization of it, starring Viggo Mortensen, Colin Farrell. I think it's directed by Ron Howard, and also has Joel Edgerton. Thank you, in it. So we're going to kind of talk about the differences between the documentary and the dramatic movie, or the feature film, I should say, and then give our take on the two. So traditional fashion, right? Spoiler free, but I mean it's going to be kind of hard because this happened in real life, and it was really big. So I'd be surprised if the majority of you guys didn't know about it already. But then we'll give it a quick score and then dive into spoilers. So, I think this is, for me personally, I think this is a good example of when a documentary beats a feature film. I don't think it happens too often, for me, because a lot of times documentaries can be a little plain and anticlimactic or whatever. But for me, I think that in this case of 13 Lives versus The Rescue, I think The Rescue wins the fight, or not fight, but I think it wins the competition.
Yeah. I guess if you were to compare them, I would rather, or at least I would say it'd be better to watch the documentary. However, this movie is really good in my opinion. And if I feel like if you didn't watch the documentary, you would probably feel differently about it.
Interesting. I think so. Yeah, I definitely I watched the documentary first, so I probably went into it with a little bit of a skewed opinion. But even as I was watching it, there were certain things that I don't know. We can talk about it when we get to the spoilers, because maybe the things that I didn't like about it might be born out of the fact that I've seen the documentary. But yeah, I don't know. I think if if you guys are gonna watch a movie that's about the story that took place in 2018 of 12 Thai boys and their coach being stuck in a cave, and people from all around the world, and right here it says 5,000 people, 17 countries, that all assisted in the rescue that took 19 days, I believe.
It was around there, yeah.
It was I think it was 19 days. It took them 19 days to get them out of the caves, and some crazy methods, which we'll talk about. But if you're gonna watch a movie about it, I would personally recommend that you watch The Rescue, and I'll tell you why after I give the spoiler alert. But I think you should watch The Rescue over 13 Lives.
That's fine. I still think it was a really good movie, and if you just don't like documentaries, I think this movie actually does a really good job of telling the story of what happened.
I do like Viggo Mortensen in it. I think he played his character really well.
Yeah, he was great.
I really think Joel Edgerton. God, I don't know why I can't say his name.
Honestly, all the people
all the main
portraying,
characters,
the mix of divers were super good.
Yeah, I think they all played their characters well. Especially since I've seen The Rescue and know how the actual characters act. So I think they did well. And you know the Thai actors, they were fine. I didn't have any problem with them at all. So yeah, let's give it a quick score. We will score. I don't know. You want to score both movies, or how do you want to do it?
I think I'm just gonna stick to this
Just score 13
particular
Lives.
movie. But
Okay.
just know the documentary is very,
It's
very
very good. Okay. As far as this movie goes, I'm gonna give it a 7.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 7, and I'll talk about why.
I think honestly, I probably would give this movie like an 8.
Okay. Okay. So we're not too far off. Not too far off. I will say that the reason why I'm giving it a 7 is because despite, like, I probably would have given it lower, to be honest. I probably would have given it lower. But despite having seen The Rescue and knowing the story and knowing what happens, I still got like chicken skin and teary eyed towards the end of the movie when all of the, you know, the climactic stuff was happening. Like I still got the feels. So for that reason, I give it a little bit higher than I probably would have before. But yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll dive into some spoilers, explain why we feel how we feel. So with that being said, this is your official
Spoiler alert.
All right. So, I guess it is hard to compare a documentary and a feature film. However, I think this is one of those cases where you might be able to, just because the documentary itself felt like a feature film. Like it felt like it was super dramatic, and it felt like a feature film to me. But I think the biggest thing for me the biggest difference between the two films was the emphasis that The Rescue, the National Geographic documentary, the emphasis that film put on the special skills that the divers had, right? Like when you watch The Rescue, a large portion of the beginning of the film is devoted to talking about how these divers, these guys right here, well, these are
Some of them.
These are the actors of them, but
yeah.
and they talk about how this skill that they have, this ability to cave dive and be comfortable in these tight claustrophobic spaces where there's minimal to no light and you're just all based off of feel and training, and how it's so rare, and how without them, those boys would have never been rescued.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like they talk a lot about how the Thai government, or the governor, was like at the end of his ropes. He had no other options, and then somebody mentioned to him that there are people out there that specialize in this type of diving, but it's a recreational thing. Like they didn't like in the movie 13 Lives, they talk about how like they're part of the Cave Diving Rescue Council or whatever. But I don't remember that from the documentary. I remember that they had said that they had done some recovery stuff, but that majority of their diving had been recreational, that they just enjoyed doing it for some reason because they're crazy.
Yeah, but I think that's just
I think it's a dramatization of it.
Well, it's not really a dramatization. It's just a way to make an audience understand their, I guess like
their authority,
position as people. Like it's the add to the like, instead of just being like trust me, these are my boys. Like
yeah.
No worries. It emphasizes the like their abilities and stuff. It is like it's more I guess like theatrical in a sense,
Right.
But I don't think it's like a big deal, because
I mean
it wasn't necessarily wrong. Like they never mentioned a council thing, but the point of it, them using that just to explain that, hey, These guys have been doing it for this many years.
Yeah.
We've done some rescue operations. It just emphasizes that fact instead of just saying like, yeah, these are just, trust me, these guys are it. Like,
I don't think it's that big of a deal, but for me, part of what made the documentary The Rescue so gravitating and so crazy was that these guys were just civilian guys that just did this on the weekends for fun because they enjoyed putting themselves in these crazy positions, and they were the only people, and in fact they were made fun of. Like they talk about it in the documentary that they were outcasts. Like people didn't really, like they weren't, you know, people didn't really talk to them because they chose to do these kinds of things. And these somewhat outcasts or these outliers of society that choose to do this singular crazy thing because they enjoy it were the only people that were capable of finding those boys. And I think that's such a crazy, insane point that is kind of lost in the film, or in the feature film 13 Lives. Yeah. That's one of the biggest differences for me. And then, like you had said earlier today when we were talking offline, the pace, not the pace of, well, I guess it is, the pace of the movie was really fast, even though it was a 2.5 hour long movie.
Yeah.
And I don't remember feeling that way for the documentary.
Yeah, obviously I agree. Like, it was very, very fast compared to the documentary, but I don't hold it against the movie because what this movie does that the documentary does not do is it expands the stories for everybody. In the documentary, you don't go into the Thai peoples with the Navy SEALs, the farmers, and all of their stories and stuff, their side of the story.
That's fair.
The documentary is very heavily, I don't really know how I describe it, but like,
it's just focused on the divers and their tasks.
Well, not even just them. It's like, I want to say like UN focus, because it focuses basically on everybody except the local people. And like, I mean, it mentions like other countries here and there, but you really only see the divers, the U.S. military that was there focused, and like every once in a while you see like the Australians and stuff.
Yeah.
Which,
and they mentioned the water people.
This movie covers way more than that.
They mention the water people, but they don't mention that, you know, diverting the water is ruining a whole bunch of people's crops, but that they were willing to let that happen because they wanted to find the boys.
Right. And even just doing that, like diverting the water, if they didn't do that, they also wouldn't, these kids would have been dead.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like, it was like, it's something that can easily be looked over, even if you're just watching the documentary.
Yeah.
Because they just don't focus on it. But if you really think about it, for these people to come together to divert like an insane amount of water.
At the end of the feature film, they say
like
that
incredible.
they estimated that the people that were diverting water diverted around 35 million gallons of water,
which is crazy, which is
insane.
And honestly, like, probably a mix of that and just pure luck of like,
it is 100% pure luck.
I mean, if like, think about it, you're trying to divert water from a mountain, and having to find all these different little like spots all around them. And in the movie, this could again be a theatrical thing, but they had a certain person that like local elder that knew the mountain very well to, you know, like kind of.
I'd be surprised if that wasn't real, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I know, but they don't touch that at all in the documentary.
In the documentary, Yeah, you are right that it is a little bit more focused on the rescue operation versus the water diverting, because that was a huge help, and it is 100% luck. Like, I mean, they even mention it in both documentaries. They mention how a few days after they get the last boy and then the last of the Navy SEALs out, that the entire cave gets submerged for the next 8 months.
Yep.
Or 8 weeks or something like that.
No, it's 8 months.
It is 8 months? Yeah. So, Yeah, I mean,
if they didn't do what they did,
yeah,
they absolutely would have died.
They're gone. You know, it would have been a recovery operation.
I mean, technically, not just the boys, even those SEALs.
Yeah, the SEALs would have been done for too. Yeah. So, it definitely was a huge stroke of luck, and it was a huge effort on the water diverters, on the people, even the people running the pumps. Even though the pumps didn't do a whole lot, what the pumps did do,
it still helps.
Well, what the pumps did do was allow for people, non-divers, to access all the way up to chamber 3.
Right.
And be able to wait at chamber 3 for the divers to bring them out instead of having to come farther to the entrance. Yeah. And then from there, they had a pulley system that they used to bring the boys out. So everybody played a major part in this. I mean, I know I said that without these guys, these divers, they wouldn't have found them.
Which is true.
Once they found them, without everybody else's, devotion to the task, they would have never gotten them out, for sure. So, yeah, I just want to talk about the sheer just craziness. Okay, so this is a map of the cave system that the boys were trapped in, right? Down here on the right-hand side. I might need to turn down the brightness on this one. 1 second, gentlemen. Nope, other way.
I found it interesting that this movie, how I felt about the documentary, like my little side thoughts about certain things, were like almost amplified in this movie.
Really? Like what?
Like, well, I don't want to. I'll wait till after to talk about it. It's not like super important.
Sure.
But.
Yeah. So down here on the bottom right hand side, this is the main entrance, right? This is the pictures that you see of people in there and whatever, and then, so the boys were thought to have entered there on June 23rd after a soccer game. They were just on their way home, and their coach wanted to celebrate and have some fun. And this is an area or a place that they had gone to multiple times. This wasn't something new. It wasn't something they were unfamiliar with.
Yeah, it's like a tourist.
Yeah, and area. They knew about the rains. They knew that when the rains came, that it flooded the cave. Right. However, monsoon season came very early that year. Yeah, and they weren't expecting it to be there.
Like a month later.
Yeah, they weren't expecting it to be there at that time. So they entered there, and this red circle right here is the approximate area that, or chamber 3, where all of the rescue operations, non-diver rescue operations were. So a lot of the Navy SEALs were there because, we'll talk about that in a second. But so most of the rescue operations, non-diver, were there. Okay, and then you follow this little snake of a tunnel to T-Junction. Right, T-Junction is 1.5 kilometers from the main entrance. That's like a mile. I'm pretty sure. Let me ask Suri. Hey, Suri, how many miles is 1.5 kilometers?
I found this on the web.
Well, that doesn't help. Yeah. It's about a mile. Yeah. So that's a mile into the mountain. I mean, just try to think about how long it takes you to walk a mile, right? It takes you probably 12 minutes, 13 minutes to walk a mile. And now imagine trying to swim a mile, right? Most people, when they swim a mile, it's around 30 to 40 minutes of an average swimmer for a mile. Now try to imagine diving in insane conditions, no light, holding onto a rope, feeling around, no idea where you're going because most of the divers hadn't been in this cave, and you're just hoping you end up in the right place. Like, that's insane. Like, that's absolutely bonkers. I think, if I remember correctly, during both films they talk about it, but it takes about 5 hours to get to the T-junction diving, which is like that's already a lot of freaking time just to get to the T-junction. And then the boys were believed to have been at Pattaya Beach, this right here on this left side, which, I mean, if we're just guesstimating here, that's another, let's say, half a kilometer.
Yeah, maybe
down,
a little bit more. Maybe
a little bit more than that, right? That's where they were thought to have been, and that's where they thought they were headed, because that's a place they had been, multiple times. But it wasn't until the British divers pushed past that area, probably another, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred meters, maybe a little bit more than that, like maybe 300 to 500 meters,
300 or so,
down, and found them at this area right here, right? And they found them on July 2nd. So they entered the cave on the 23rd. They were found on July 2nd. That's 9 days.
10. At least that's what they say during the...
I don't know. My math says 9. 23rd to 10. Oh, no. Yeah, because June has only 30 days, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it's 9 days, right?
Well, I'm saying they say 10.
Whatever. 9 to 10 days is still an insane amount of time to spend in the dark, no food, no water. Well, they have water, but no food.
They ain't got no shortage of water.
Yeah, that's true. They would have died without water for sure. But they had no food, and they were just trapped in the dark. It's hard for me to comprehend how all of them survived to that point, right? The thought process or why they ended up there is because they thought, the experts think that they entered the cave and they were somewhere around T-junction headed towards Pattaya Beach when the water started to rise because it was raining. They had no idea that it was raining because they were underground, and then the water started to rise and they couldn't get back out towards the entrance, so then they decided to go further into the cave to seek higher ground.
Right.
And then they ended up finding a place to stay, right? But just imagine if the divers went to T-junction, right, and decided to go the other way. Like, imagine if they had just decided, you know what, I think they might be this way. They might have been right instead of left.
I mean, they already would have, like, because the main guy that starts, like, everything, he's like the main advisor. He mapped out the cave, but he already knew that, like,
he assumed that they were headed towards
be
Pattaya.
That way, because like the most ideal place would have been Pattaya Beach, and then that other place that they were at.
Yeah, it's hard to. I think it's just hard to put in perspective because, I mean, just the sheer distance. The sheer distance and the sheer physical exertion it would take to swim all that or to dive all that way. I mean, it's unbelievable. The things that the divers did to get there. I mean, I don't think it's talked about enough. It's unbelievable, man. So, yeah, that's basically what happened. They found the boys on July 2nd, and then they had to figure out how to get them out of there. So for a couple days, they would dive them food. Like, they would take canisters of food and supplies to them.
Yeah.
And they would, they would take stuff to them. And then a couple days after they found the boys, a Thai Navy SEAL dive team was on their way to take wetsuits and some other supplies to the kids, and unfortunately one of the Thai Navy SEALs passed away. And I don't know where the picture that I saved is. There it is. It's this guy right here, Saman Guana. I apologize if I mispronounce your name, man, but he unfortunately died on the way to take them supplies. And there are 2 Navy SEAL casualties, Thai Navy SEAL casualties during this operation, and they were the only casualties of the operation. It was this SEAL during an actual dive, and then later on, there's another Thai Navy SEAL that died due to a infection that he got from the rescue operation.
Yeah, I'll say that was like after.
Yeah. So during the actual rescue operation, this was the only casualty, and it's real sad because this guy he wasn't actually a Navy SEAL at the time.
He wasn't in the military anymore. Yeah. He had like ETS or whatever, and I'm assuming by this picture he ended up working for security for the airport, and then he had called in to his former commander to come help.
Running the Thai Navy SEALs that were doing the operation, and he was like, "Oh, let me come help," and they did, and unfortunately, he passed away. So, thank you for your service, man. Super sad that you had to go like that, man. But you're a real one. Because anybody that's willing to even try to do that is a far better man than me.
Yep.
Because
I'm not that cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You're insane, man. So rest in peace, man. Hopefully your family's all good. But yeah, so unfortunately because of his death, the Navy SEALs halted their diving operations to the buoys, and they wouldn't allow any Navy SEALs past Chamber 3, which is right here. So it was up to the British divers or the cave divers to go from here all the way to the buoys for the rest of the operation. Yeah, what the hell? It's crazy. So what are some of those side thoughts that you were thinking of as you were watching?
It was just the fact that, like, I don't know how people would take this, but like what happened was incredible. Everybody was amazing, and like I thought it was a crazy story, and it was super well done. And it was just the fact that like I feel like this whole situation could have been handled better.
Okay.
And the only reason it wasn't, which is not surprising at all, is literally due to inferiority complex, too much pride, and I guess just because it was such a
public thing.
Yeah, well, not only just public, but like a non-normal situation. I don't know.
Or just a
unusual situation.
Circumstances. Okay.
Because the governor is an idiot. There's a reason why he was supposed to be getting kicked out of his position.
Right.
This, to me, entire event shows that. Even though in the movie, he's even more like, not praised, but like shown in a better light.
Yeah.
Than in the documentary. And then the same thing with the SEALs. Like, look, I'm not Thai. I don't know what you guys do. You're obviously not American Navy SEALs, but that's not the first thing that comes to my mind when you're trying to pick but that, I guess that might be the best thing for them. I don't know. Like for this kind of, like operation.
Oh,
like,
I see what you mean.
Yeah, I get it. They're SEALs, but it's like, that's not their thing. Like, sure, they dive, but it's not even the same kind of diving. Like,
right.
Totally different.
Right, which they talk about because they're trained to dive in open water, right? Not caves.
And it's like, but again, I guess, I don't know, maybe that's the best thing they got. But I feel
maybe
like
they don't have any.
They don't have like specific search and rescue people that like kind of do that
trained
stuff.
For that.
On top of that too, I do want to say in the movie, as far as the U.S. personnel that were there were some U.S. Air Force guys there. In the movie, I don't know what they are in the movie, but they were PJs in the documentary. Which are actually probably the more people that are probably specialized in this stuff because that's their job is to save lives. So, but I understand like they can't really, they can only do so much because they're under U.S. command, and they're like, no, you can't.
Right.
If you, because if they get hurt, then it's a whole big thing. So obviously they're limited in their, I guess, authority or whatever. But they were still heavily, I would say, dominant in like the fact of like
they were heavily involved.
They were like the liaison between the British divers and the Thai government.
Right.
And then everybody else kind of was just there for the most part. It seemed like, I guess for just side support roles.
Right.
I'm talking like Australia, China, and like all the other
countries. So what do you think could have been done differently to get the boys out sooner?
Well, you think it was just a matter of... It's not that it should have been done differently. I just feel like the entire thing took longer than it needed to, which might be harsh to like people and be like, oh, you're just like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I mean, yeah, in a sense, but like if you've ever been in a military operation, you know that things that are most of the time simple are made complicated for no reason.
Right.
Just because of like whatever somebody wants to like swing around a bigger stick than somebody else, or whatever stupid nonsense. And basically that happens in this, and it's like, oh, that sounds normal, but like at the same time, why didn't they just like do things faster?
So you agree with what you're saying is the order of operations that were followed were okay, but it should have been on a faster timeline, and it shouldn't have waited so long to act on certain things.
Right. Like in the very beginning, look, you asked this guy who mapped out this cave system.
Yeah.
So nobody knows it better than him. For these divers that he handpicked from around the world to come and help for this mission. And then, like, of course, the commander of the Navy SEALs is like, no, dude, I'm a Navy SEAL. I have a bigger dick than you. Like, this is my operation. No, dude, you don't, like, again, this is where the whole pride thing comes into effect. And it's like, I get it. He's not trying to say that he's cooler than you because you're a Navy SEAL. That's fine. But this is his thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why you're coming to him for help. Let them do their thing. Because in the documentary, which is, I think, different in this, the time it took for them just to allow them to go into the cave was like a few days.
It was way longer, and actually it pissed off the main guy, Rick.
Right, because he's like, look, I'm here to help you.
All the way over here. Why aren't you?
This is what we do. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And they just waste so much time. And that happens throughout the entire operation of like there's certain times when like, for example, when that one SEAL died.
Yeah.
Totally get it. He's going to be like, look, no more Navy SEALs going in.
Right.
One, that's stupid. Like, I understand that it's like a very sad situation, but like,
it's part of the job you signed up for.
That's exactly like he did something doing what he wanted to do, which was trying to save people's lives.
He knew the risk, and he took the risk, and unfortunately.
Right. So like you taking that like and going like super extreme, like, oh, nobody goes in.
Yeah.
There, like, I'm sure it varies from person to person, but I feel like any other country wouldn't do that. Like anybody, when I say that, I mean like, like the US, the UK, like countries that are like, involved in a lot of things all the time, because we probably have a better or easier time to understand. Like,
do you have more experience? Our countries have more experience with these
just
kinds
handling
of matters.
Different things, right?
But I think those reactions came from a like cover your own ass kind of response, in my opinion. Like they didn't want to be responsible for anything or for any foreigners going in there, because if any foreigners go in there and get hurt, then it's on them.
I'm not talking about the divers. I'm talking about the SEALs. They halted Thai operations because of the one casualty.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't want any casualties, but you have to understand that, like, if you halt, like, if they had stopped for any amount of other variables, those kids could have been already dead.
Right.
So, you like, whenever we're trying to do it, like, something that's life-threatening or whatever, you shouldn't be. Yeah, it's insane. Like very important because you never know what's gonna happen, especially in something like this where it involves Mother Nature. Totally unpredictable.
It's a hard one because I have been involved in rescue operations. Right, I've done rescues, and something that they teach you when you're learning, rescues and stuff is that as hard as it is mentally, the rescuer's safety is always the priority. A lot of times we push that aside and we risk our safety to attempt to rescue somebody, but we're taught that we should be prioritizing our safety at all times.
Well, right.
So I hear what you're saying, and I think that there's a line, right? There's a point where time is of the essence. Time is of the essence. You need to get to those boys as quickly as possible. You need to get the operation done as quickly as possible. But at the same time, I can see from a rescue supervisor's point of view of them being like, I already lost one guy. I don't know if I can risk losing other people. So I can't see it from both sides.
But I understand that. It's just, again, they wanted to be like throughout the movie, and more so the movie than the documentary, but I think it's just because it was biased, is they're all willing to be like, even like put out their name. Oh, the Navy SEALs do this, they did this. They want all the praise, but they don't want any of the backlash when things go wrong. Shit happens. I get that. And I know that, like, as a commander or whatever, you have to be able to look out for your troops or whatever.
Yeah.
But that, in my opinion, that wasn't what happened in, like, the operation. It was just, oh, I'm going to look bad, so nothing is going to happen from this point forward.
Okay.
All the decisions that were made were either to get good publicity for both governor and the SEALs or whatever, but try to avoid the negative. And in my opinion, you should never be doing any of that stuff. Like, you just do your job.
You shouldn't be making operational
decisions. You should not care about any of that stuff.
Based off of optics, right?
You just need to, like, here's your mission, figure it out.
Yeah.
And like I said, I totally get the, not like, you can't just be like overly confident, like try to put yourself in danger. I'm well aware of that. But that's not what happened in this. Like, to me, it didn't happen in this situation. It was just simply the two higher ups were trying to shuffle a whole bunch of nonsense that doesn't matter for their, particular situations, because it was different from the governor and the commander. And it just ruined the rest of the operation, because everybody that's actually involved, like physically doing everything, did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Like the SEALs, all the volunteers, everything. Everybody did great. It's just, I feel like they were hampered because of these stupid idiots that are on top of the chain, can't figure out like what they want to do, or just make stupid decisions, which happens for a whole lot of things.
Yeah, as I say, I think that's a common theme with a lot of situations. But I hear what you're saying. I think that the timeline of events could have been faster, for sure.
On the movie?
No, just in general.
Oh, in general, yeah.
I think the timeline events could have been faster, for sure.
Because honestly, what they ended up deciding to do throughout the whole entire thing makes a lot of sense. Like, you got to, take it like step by step and stuff. So it's just, I feel like there was so much wasted time between them for non-important reasons.
Yeah, I wonder if it had been a military-led operation versus a state-led operation, because it was led by the governor, right? Who was a state official. He made the final, and he makes all the final calls. I wonder if it had been a military-led operation, if it had gone differently.
Which, I mean, honestly, in that case, could be
either or.
It could be even worse.
Because sometimes military officials do the same thing. They try to cover their own butt and shift around things so that if things do go bad.
Like if it's a strictly military thing, it's like they're gonna take the example you brought up, right? And I need to look after my guys.
Yeah.
They might take that to the extreme and be like, you know what? It's too dangerous. We're not doing it. They're just you accept it, and that shit can happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the end, as much as we could say things could have gone better, I don't think we can complain too much.
Oh no, but I mean, it's like the fact that you can even tell the people involved.
Yeah, we're getting frustrated, and
they would. I'm pretty sure they would agree with me that like, you should have let them do what they were going to do because they honestly are the ones involved, so they kind of have the best perspective on everything.
I do agree with that.
Also, I don't remember how it's exactly portrayed in the movie versus the documentary, but those SEALs, bro, you guys sent them in to a mission that they are not suited for, not trained for, not equipped for, and they still managed to do as much as they did. Yeah. Like the divers, right? Like they brought all their stuff because that's what they do. But the SEALs, I don't know if can you imagine being like thrown in to do you're gonna go do this mission, never done it before. Here's some janky dive equipment that we can barely afford.
Yeah,
that's been sitting around or whatever.
That is a testament to the capabilities of those Navy SEALs that even with subpar conditions and subpar equipment, that they were still able to accomplish their mission eventually.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't want to come off as I'm hating on them.
Right.
Because I have no doubt you guys are hard as fuck.
Oh yeah.
I mean, since we were in the Army, we don't really do a whole lot with the Thai, but I know my brother's done training with you. I know because the Marines obviously do some training with you guys. I know you guys do some crazy stuff, which is probably the same in the Marine Corps with cutting off heads of snakes and drinking its blood and crap. You guys, I'm sure you guys are badass. I just wanted to point that out. To do what you guys did. Not trying to
hate on them. Yeah.
Right. I'm talking more the
leadership.
The leadership basically.
Got it.
But the actual guys that you cool, insane. Bro. You guys are fucking badass. So.
Well, last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up this episode, I just want to talk about the methods that they use to actually extract the boys. So we've talked about how they found them, right? It took them 9 or 10 days to find the boys, and then it took them then they spent the next 3 or 4 days getting them supplies and making sure that they were fed and stuff. But they still didn't know how to get them out. Excuse me. They still weren't sure how to go about getting them out of the cave. Monsoon season is fast approaching, right? There's a lot of variables at play, and nobody could think of anything. Nobody could think of a way to get them out.
At least fast enough.
Yeah. And there was they didn't really talk about it in the movie, but they did talk about it in the documentary, and they talked about how there were some people pitching the idea of having them stay there through monsoon season and that they would dive them supplies periodically, continue to pump stuff, continue to divert water, and try and just keep them alive through the monsoon season. There were people that thought that was the best course of action, which I can't really blame them because it's not in the moment I don't know if I would have thought of the answer that they came up with.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a quick decision.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I'm sure that got shut down real quick by the dive team.
I mean, at some point, that was the only option, right? Before they had come up with what they did, that was the only option.
Because I mean, they knew that once it hits, they can't go in there.
Their goal was to continue to pump, continue to divert, and keep
right. I mean, that's what that's what they're doing the whole time. They were trying to figure out, but
So
I'm pretty sure they talked about what was his name? The main guy, John?
Rick. Isn't it Rick?
He's the second guy.
Oh.
He was the first guy that he called. I think John was the first guy. I'm pretty sure he talked about how once the monsoon hit, they can't. There's nothing they could do because to go into the cave at that point, the water level would be, maxed out, the current would be way too strong.
Not just and it would
not
be way too the dangerous water level. There's currents in there, and I think that was one thing that I don't think they portrayed well enough in the movie or in the feature film, that there are insane currents in the cave system that were very hard to navigate, and that's what made it so hard, was that there's insane currents down there. But let's talk about how they got the boys out. Okay, for those of you that don't know, that didn't follow this when it happened in real life or haven't watched any of the movies, the British divers came up with the idea of sending divers in and then using a doctor, Dr. Harry, who is an anesthesiologist or an anesthetist, to sedate the boys, put them on a rebreather, and then swim them out or dive them out. Which, like, when you say it like that, doesn't sound like a big deal. Like, deal when you think sedate them and then swim them. But, like, coming from somebody that, like, I will say that the rescue operations that I've been a part of weren't like anything like this. Like, we never did any cave diving, or I've never done anything like that. But I have done open water rescues. I have done mountain rescues and some other stuff. But, like, just the fact that was even a thought of, like, there's no way. Because when you're dealing with rescuing people, like, oh god, it was so bizarre to me that's how they got them out. Because you have to factor in, I mean, they talk about it in the movie, but you have to factor in the boys, like, how much you're giving them, right? That Dr. Harry, had to be real fucking specific about how much ketamine he gives them. Because too much, and they'll stop breathing. Too little, and they're going to wake up and freak out, right? And then on top of that, there's other factors, like, he mentioned it briefly, but he didn't talk about it too much, but saliva. So when you're
you don't want to drown.
Yeah, when you're sedated, like when you go into surgery and they sedate you, they put a tube in you to go down into your lungs to breathe for you, or they put suction in your mouth to keep you from drowning in your own spit.
Right. Because kind of like when you go to the dentist.
Right. Because if you even though you're sedated, your body still produces saliva and to keep your mouth clean, but because you're asleep, your body doesn't know how much to produce, so it just keeps producing saliva.
Right.
And then eventually it'll build up, and then you can drown in your own spit, which is a crazy phenomenon. But, like, that's crazy. Just the fact that they're swimming people out is crazy, right? Because a lot of the passageways, like, you guys can see it in this picture. I mean, obviously this is not to scale, or it might be to scale, but, like, these passageways are tiny. Like, they are barely big enough for you to fit through. In fact,
yeah, they explain it throughout both, where there's, like, they specify, like, oh, this section is this bendy, it's super twisty, or it's like
there's
the
even
current's
a section
super strong here.
There's even a section where you have to take off your equipment and swim through, and then push your equipment through to get through. And now you're adding in another human being that you have to, like, it's just mind-blowing that they were able to do this. And in the end, the fact that they were able to save all 12 boys, their coach, and the 3 Thai Navy SEALs that had to stay behind after their initial contact.
It was, I think,
it was 3, right?
It was in the movie. It was 3, but I think it was only 2 in the actual.
Oh yeah, you're right. I think it was.
They just added a 3rd one in the movie.
But just the fact that they had 100% success rate, 100% success rate on one of the craziest, insane rescue operations that's ever been done. The fact that they had 100% success rate is out of this world. I've never done anything remotely close to it as crazy, complicated, or dangerous as this, and I don't even have 100% success rate in my rescues. These guys had 100% success rate on the craziest rescue in history. That, to me, like, when I was watching the documentary for the first time, I was mind blown. Like, I can't tell you how many times I sat up and was like, what? What is happening? What are you doing? Like, hold on. And I don't get teary eyed or like choke up on a lot of movies, but I'll tell you what, man. During the documentary, I was close to bawling my eyes out. Like it was heavy for me, especially when the rescue guys finished. Like they got the last boy out, and they're all just kind of like sitting there, and just like breathing and just decompressing after everything. Like, because I've been in that situation where you finally finished and you're just like letting it all out. Because when you're in the moment, you got to focus. You can't think about things. You got to do your job, right? You can't allow emotions and feelings to get in the way of you doing your job. But then once you're done and you finish or you complete your task or whatever, all those emotions flood you all at once, and there's no way to control them. And so a lot of times that's why you see a lot of rescuers on the side crying and feeling their emotions. And I've been there, and like I felt that after that, and I felt it pretty hard. I thought it's just a mind-blowing story. Absolutely insane. I remember when this happened in real life, and I followed it somewhat, and I knew that they got them all out, but I never knew this. I never knew the methods and how they did it, and I don't think they released that for a long time either. So just to watch it in the documentary was just, I can't tell you guys how like mind-blowing it is.
Yeah.
1000% recommend to watch either one. I mean, even if you just watch the 13 Lives feature film, still does a really good job, but insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, incredible. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, when all is said and done, we can complain, we can talk about and mention, things should have been done faster, or we don't like this person, we don't like whatever. But when all is said and done, they had 100% success rate. Everybody survived. Everybody is okay, except for, unfortunately, the two Thai Navy SEALs. But just crazy. You guys, every single person that was involved in that operation, you guys are a true hero. Like that, even for the people, the people diverting water, the people pumping, like all of that, everybody that was involved. Anybody
even the people like
making food.
Making food. Yeah. That's very important.
It's huge.
You feel the whole operation. Yeah. So
like everybody, all 5,000 people, every single individual, that of the 5,000 people, you guys are all true heroes. Like, I hope you guys understand how amazing it is that what you guys did for these 12 boys and their coach. Like, you guys are unbelievable. It's incredible.
One thing I liked that they brought out more in the movie versus the documentary is the coach.
Yes, that is true.
When I was watching the documentary, I'm like, man, I don't know how I would feel if I was that coach.
That coach. And the thing is like he is what kept those boys alive.
Oh, for sure. Like real. If he wasn't there, those kids probably would have been like where there at least might have been less of them. Yeah. And like, but at the same time, I totally understand, like, because he's like, it's almost the same as if like if we ran into a big situation with like a squad or something, you're like, damn, this is my fault. Like I led you guys to this position, and now we're screwed.
Yeah.
And like,
and he was totally feeling
sitting there. I'm like, damn, because from their point of view, it's like we're stuck in this cave, like far in this cave.
Yeah.
And I would be thinking, there's no way we're getting out.
Yeah.
So the only thing I can do is to just ignore my mindset and try to keep these kids like happy enough until we all like pass away. Like,
I'm gonna tell you right now, I think the amount of people that are capable of doing what that coach did are way smaller.
Oh yeah, than very few.
Like, I think the percentage of people in this world that are capable of doing what that coach did is very small, because like you said, he had to ignore his own thoughts and his own feelings to keep the spirits of the boys up, and on top of that,
just in the hope that somebody might come.
The split chance that they get rescued. But on top of that, like, once they did make contact, can you imagine trying to control a bunch of 11 to 16-year-old boys that just found out that there's a chance that they might survive. And like, I mean, they talk about it in the movie a little bit, but they talk about it more in the documentary about how like patient the boys were.
Right.
You know, like how once the rescuers get there, because so for those of you that don't know, when you rescue somebody or when somebody's in danger and they need to be rescued, when they realize help is there, a lot of times people freak out.
Right.
A lot of times
it gets
people,
even more risky.
A lot of times people will freak out. They'll flail. They'll try to grab you. They'll try to like do whatever they can to make sure that they get out.
I hated this. And when I did lifeguard training, I hated that so much.
Yeah. So yeah, they teach you like when you swim up to somebody and then they like
here, I'm here to help, and I'm like, oh god,
and you have to like push them off.
Me, like please stop.
yeah. So like that's a very real thing, you know. I've experienced it myself. So the fact that those boys were just perfectly okay with just letting one of them go at a time, and none of them ever made a big deal about it. None of them ever like freaked out and tried to, you know, do anything crazy.
Not only that, like I love the fact that they went about it so I don't really know how to describe, but in like such a cute way with their decision, because they're like, look, the person who lives the farthest goes first.
Yeah.
So that they can spread the word as they go home.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Obviously, that's not really what's going to happen, because once they get saved, you're
well, they don't know.
Well, I know they don't know, but I'm saying like you're going to get quarantined so that you're taken care of and all that. But like the thought
it's such
you know, the thought process is like
it's very cute. It is.
I don't know how to describe it.
It's a very heartwarming.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if this was Americans, this ain't happening,
dude. If this
was
Americans,
probably already died, because they would have freaked out. They'd be fighting each other. They'd be like, "I'm going first."
Yeah.
Not only that, just even getting to this point, I guarantee if it was a bunch of random Americans, at least 3 of them would have died.
Doing something stupid.
Yeah, just some stupid reason.
You're not wrong about that.
Because this entire you're like when you think about it, like, they got trapped. They found this ideal position, and then they had flashlights and stuff. But like they purposely avoided using them,
right?
Because they knew if there was a situation in which they might get rescued, you want to save that battery for that time,
right?
Which they do use whenever the divers come up. And on top of that, you know, because they're all these particular group, they're religious. That's a big for people that are religious. That's a huge, you know, motivator to like stay calm and like, you know, I don't know how you describe it.
Well, they talked about meditating, right? The the boys like talked about how their teacher,
let's meditate and pray, coach, and stuff.
Yeah,
which is very important, like for a very, you know, like an emergency situation, because it's important to stay calm, especially in this case, because they only have so much air in the cave.
Yeah, which I think is something that didn't get talked about enough in either of the films. That for those of you that don't know, the air that we breathe normally holds about 21% oxygen, right? And anything under, I think it's anything under 18% oxygen is considered a low oxygen environment that is not sustainable for human life. And these boys, this cave that they were in, by the time they were rescued, was below like 16%. Yeah.
Something like that, like super low.
It was well below 16% oxygen, which is insane. Like,
because I think when they got to them, I think like that second trip,
it was 18.
They checked it because they thought about it, and they're like, "Oh wow, it's at 16 already."
Yeah. So, I think we could ramble on all day about how crazy this is, and every aspect, every piece of the puzzle that went into this happening in the first place, them getting trapped, and then the rescue operations and everything that came up after, and the fact that there was 100% success rate in rescuing these boys and their coach. Every piece of it is insane. Every piece of it is almost unbelievable. Like, if it didn't happen in real life, this is an incredible movie to make. You know what I mean? Like, if this didn't happen in real life, if somebody made a movie and this is what happened, you would be like, oh my God, this is insane. No way this would ever happen in real life, you know? So, my hat's off to every single person that was involved in the rescue operation. Like I said before, you guys are all true heroes.
Yeah.
And rest in peace to the 2 Navy SEALs that unfortunately lost their lives due to this. But just know that your guys' deaths were not in vain. All these boys are alive and healthy now. And there's even, for those of you that want to look into it more, there's a lot of, like they do a lot of TV appearances and stuff, and they talk about their experience. Highly recommend watching that stuff. It's a good watch. It's pretty, a lot of what they have to say is incredible, since they're, you know, so young and whatnot. It's
the kind of stuff that brings faith back to humanity.
Yeah, I 100% agree. 100% agree. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap up with a question to you, the audience. When it comes to stories like this, do you guys prefer documentaries, or do you prefer feature films or dramatizations of it? Please let us know down in the comments below. I'm personally going to say, in this case, I'm going with the documentary. I'm gonna go with the. I like to see the real footage. I like to see the real people doing the acts, but that's just me personally.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I mean, I agree. Like, I would say the documentary is better, but this movie is very good.
Yeah.
And I love the actors that were involved.
Yeah, I do love Viggo. So.
Aaron Gordon came out a little bit.
I was just say, our Lord and
Savior.
There
was one scene I was like, for Frodo.
Our Lord and Savior Aaron Gordon,
of course, saves the day.
And then we have Uncle Ben, and we have Penguin.
Vengeance!
So thank you guys for joining us. Please let us know down in the comments below if you guys prefer documentaries or feature films. Thank you. And do some research into this story. It's absolutely bonkers.
I highly recommend it.
Your mind will be blown. So thank you. Please like, subscribe, comment, share with a friend. Catch you guys in the next episode.
Bye, guys.